Hi everyone, welcome back to the Web Summit. I'm Miguel Magalhães, I'm the content lead at the Next Big Idea, and over the day we'll be conducting a series of interviews powered by FAI, where we'll be discussing the overall European ecosystem in Europe, but in Portugal as well. And so with me now I have João Fonseca Santos, he's the head of the European Investment Bank office in Portugal, and we're going to discuss a little bit about the operation of the bank here in Portugal. So, João, to start, I wanted to ask you, of course, the European Investment Bank has a huge operation in Europe. How does the Portuguese numbers and the Portuguese activities that the bank has compares with the European pattern or the European context?
Hello, Miguel, and thank you very much for the invitation to be here. It's a big pleasure uh, to talk about what the IB Group is doing in Portugal. So we have a very interesting story to tell. Portugal has been, although we do not have quotas by country at the IB, and we are reactive to the demand of each country. Portugal, Portugal has been ranking very well in the IB group in terms of full of support of the group per year. For example, last year we have a metric that we look a lot at, which is the EIB support in terms of the GDP, and Portugal ranked at number 7 or 6 of the ranking, which is very interesting. And over the past 5 years, we deployed more than 12 billion of euros in Portugal, making Portugal over the last 5 years one of the top 10 recipients of the IB Group funds in Portugal. So this is a story that we tell with a big, we are very proud of, but also that shows that we are more needed when the economic activity is more challenging. We did a lot of volumes during the COVID period, reaching an abnormal level of activity of more than 5 billion in 2021, which we did a lot of intermediate lending to support SMEs through the national financial institutions. And also now we are at what we can say a level of recurrent activity of the country. And in 2022, last year, we went to around the 1.7 billion, which where we are in normal times. So we have a very nice story to tell and a very good pipeline and different type of projects that we are supporting.
The Portuguese ecosystem, especially since the Web Summit came here, has been seen like a huge growth and a huge improvement in terms of in a lot of conditions related
Yeah.
either to investment or to the day-to-day activities of companies. What do you feel are still some challenges that we need to face as a country, and what can be the role of IEB in helping assessing those challenges?
Well, we have structural challenges that are common to several European countries. Uh, we have a country which is also with a big majority of SMEs and of where, whereas we all know they have more limited access to finance or capital as a whole compared to other type of companies, and so we need to adapt our offer to those specific needs. So that's why we work a lot with our financial partners, the national bank or the national promotional bank, to create this kind of initiatives that allow us to reach the SMEs so they have financing and specifically during the more adverse cycles. Another issue is also Portugal has a need for more capital instruments, and so we can improve what we call the debt to equity ratio of many of our SMEs and of our corporate sector. And so partnerships like the ones that we implemented with the Banco Português de Fomento as the Portugal Tech or others like the Portugal Growth and the Portugal Blue can bring this type of instruments of more capital instruments to the economy, and this is what can allow us to continue developing and mature and make our companies more resilient. So I would say it's quite common for Europe, but also very focused to Portugal.
You just mentioned the Portugal Tech. How do you feel, and from your experience in dealing with all these stakeholders, are industries that have shown the greatest potential in Portugal, and how actually in the end Portugal Tech has helped in fostering the potential seen in those industries?
Yes, no doubt that Portugal has a lot of potential in what we refer to innovation. We have very good infrastructure and a very qualified workforce. So these are two assets that are important to foster innovative projects. Portugal Tech was an example where public money, public funds, allowed to develop and to tackle the lack of institutional funding at that time for Portuguese venture capitalists. Now the ecosystem has matured, and we have a lot of good qualified people and good managers, and much more resilience than we're facing for today. A possible lack of funding that or fundraising that is available in the market, and we have more very well established players. What we can continue to do is precisely this. When we have this kind of public monies that allow for innovation to be disruptive. Portugal Tech allow us to invest in a lot of companies, including unicorns. So it's like when it's a perfect scenario when we have public monies fostering such a success story. But we also have specific projects where we can lead. For example, I'm now recalling the case of Wind Float Portugal, which was precisely on another area, what we call our venture debt segment, so not direct equity, where we could support very well-established players, which were part of a consortium of leading energy companies in Portugal, of course, but to deploy new technologies. So it was floating offshore wind. That was the first park that was developed in Europe and in Portugal,
Yeah.
in the north near Viana do Castelo, which allow us to to now be more confident in supporting this technology in other countries, like what we are doing in France, which all started here. So we have many success stories that we can support and that we can continue to to reach our goals of the green and digital transition.
One final question, which is always unfair when we try to do some futurology, but where would you like to see the Portuguese market in 2024 in terms of improvement and things that you're already seeing and things that can be achieved over the next year?
I think we have very good news for specifically the venture capital market. There's a lot of funds available, so to see them being deployed successfully is very important. So this is a challenge that I think now the ecosystem is now going to face, but it's a good test. We have capital, so let's deploy it well. So I think it's a good test in to see how it goes.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much, Jean, for joining us. Thank you, everyone who has been watching the interview. The next BLDA, we continue to conduct interviews over the remainder of the day, so please stick with us. Follow us on LinkedIn if you want to get notified for the following interviews. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank